Hi, I'm Dana Brooks of Facing Brooks, and this is another episode of the EmPower Hour brought to you by the EmPower Plan. I'm joined today by our producer. Are you going to be on the show, Whitney? Yes, you are now. Okay.
Maybe.
we've got Whitney Morris back. She's our producer. We have got Kimmy Hogan back, my law partner. She was gracious enough to make time for us today. Everybody is super swamped at the firm. We don't have Rose Caswick today or Carrie Round today because they both, Rose is getting ready for a trial and Carrie, I believe, has depositions because we're getting back to post-COVID real life and having to be out of the office more. But I appreciate everybody for joining us. We have a great guest today. This is something I'm always excited about telling you guys about because I'm always about women-owned businesses and doing whatever you have to do to be successful and using all the resources you have. And they're usually greater than you think they are. And one of them is a business coach. There's professional coaches, personal coaches, business, whatever you need. People kind of keep you accountable and keep you on track with your goal setting. And we've got a wonderful one today. We've got Trasetta Alexander. She's here and she's formerly with the College of Medicine and she's gone into private practice. She's going to explain to us what she does to help people, particularly from a faith-based background. So welcome, Trasetta. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me on the show today. So as you mentioned, I'm Trasetta Alexander. I am a business productivity coach. And what that means is I come alongside primarily women service-based business owners and help them increase their personal productivity as well as the productivity of their businesses so that they can have increased profitability in their business, because it's all about, we go into business to make money. And if you're not keeping it, it's not about just it coming in. You also want to be profitable. And so that's what I really do is come alongside those women and help them to, do better in their businesses. I have an adult daughter. I love the beach. So that's part of the reason why I live in Florida, because I am a beach girl and I'm a coffee junkie too.
Oh my goodness. Well, it is 4:30, so we're off coffee. And Whitney has taken over
water now.
I'm on my own version, but Whitney has taken over Rose's job of giving us our drink of the day, drink of the week. Whitney, what are we having today? What are y'all having today?
Oh man, with all this rain around here, we really just needed to be cheered up, and let's do a traditional pina colada. We found some funky straws, courtesy of Rose and her bar cart, but I think it's really good. I'm impressed with myself.
I'm impressed with Rose's bar cart. But you got lazy and you raided her bar cart and you made whatever the heck you had.
You didn't have to run. I had to buy we had to buy everything. Listen, I just had to.
That surprises me because that's a considerable. That's a significant bar cart.
But she has every kind of gin under the sun. Don't worry.
Hey, we've got Kia Thomas on. Hey, Kia, she's our communications director. Are you enjoying a pina colada?
I am.
What do you think about Whitney standing in for Rose? How are you feeling that?
She did a great job. We had wine last week, so she came back with it, and I would have to agree, this is pretty good. She put just enough.
Okay. I'm having a sparkling water with cranberry and clementine from Trader Joe's.
Wow.
Product placement. Whitney, please contact them for a sponsorship. Welcome everybody. Okay. Yeah, I'll probably have to send them a check. We take advantage of certain coaching in our profession, and we have a business practice management coach. We also have marketing. We're kind of like a marketing management coach, and we're involved in a mastermind group. And at first I thought to myself, and I know Kimmy, you could probably speak to it. I thought that sounds like a whole bunch more meetings, y'all. And are they really worth my time? Or is this going to give me a lot of busy work and not really get my ball down the field? What do you think of, Kimmy, when you think of business coaching?
Well, what Trasetta said that was interesting to me is how do you increase your productivity? Because I am a person that comes in, I shut my door, I go a million miles a minute, boom, 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 boom. But I know there's some things that get in the way of productivity sometimes. And I'd be interested to hear what those tips are. I'm hoping you'll share those tips with us today.
Yeah, and I would imagine everybody's, obviously individualized. Not everybody needs the same coaching. So what do you do, Rosetta, when you work with somebody? How do you assess them and know where you can bring the greatest good to them?
Well, the very first thing I do is really start asking them what their pain points are. Where are they struggling? Where do they feel like they are struggling in their businesses or in getting things done? What kind of distractions come up? What kind of things interrupt them that keep them from getting things done? Because if you're, especially business, working with business owners, a lot of times it's hard for us to turn things off, and we don't really do boundaries very well. So our work can really bleed over into the evening, into the weekends. And before you know it, you're working, ridiculous hours, and you start to resent the very thing that you were passionate about creating. And so,
Yes.
really just to identify where their personal pain points are. And as we start to kind of dissect those, then I can really see, sometimes the problem that they think is the problem is not actually the problem, right? So what you think is the problem, sometimes it's not really the root of the thing. And so I keep probing until we really get to the root, and then go through the process of setting up some sort of systems to help them be more successful. And I love something that Kimmy said, or maybe it was you, Dana, that said, we're talking about it being personalized, right?
Mhm.
Everyone needs something different. And when it comes to productivity is really personal. I like to give people different tools. So if you think about a toolbox or a tool bag, you have screwdrivers, wrenches, hammers, levels. You have all different types of tools inside the toolbox. So I share various tools so that you can pull out the right tool for the right situation. If the only tool you have is your calendar, then you think that that's the only confines that you have in order to be productive. But there's so many other tools and resources and hacks that you can use to get the most out of your time and your day.
Yeah, I like that because productivity looks different to different people. I noticed this when we do our Come Back Stronger television show. We have these people on who have overcome tremendous adversity, and they've come back, and now they're helping other people. And then I'll listen to some of these people and I'll hear what they're doing, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm lazy. I've got to get it together. I'm not doing enough. And then I'll look at myself compared to maybe what I used to be, and I'll be like, oh, I'm not productive enough. Because like I used to be a Kimmy. When I had children and was married and I had a home and all that going on in my house all the time with work, you have to be extremely disciplined and extremely productive because you don't control all of your time. Right. So I just find that what maybe worked for me when I was younger is working for me now. A lot of the accountability factors I used to have, like people in my home, I don't have anymore. So how much does that bleed over into kind of almost developmental counseling and coaching and life developmental changes that you go through in life? What works for you now or worked for you 10 years ago may not work now.
A lot, because really mindset plays a huge role, especially, since I work primarily with women. Women tend to have a lot of guilt around taking time for themselves. And not having, like if I'm not doing something for my kids or for my aging parents or for my job or for my friends or for my community, all the different hats that we wear, then we tend to think that, we carry a lot of guilt around that. And one of the things that I really do is kind of help to change mindsets around self-care and delegation, because delegation is another area where women tend to take on too much and try to do too much themselves because they don't want to bother someone else, or they feel like the other person is not going to do it right or do it the way that they want them to do it. And so that we hold on to things that really could be delegated to free us up to do our most important work.
That is true. That is so true.
Oh, 100%.
I can be such a micromanager because I just want to make sure it's all done now and done the way I want it done.
Oh yeah, if I can't get something done now, ooh, I hate it.
I swing between the extremes. I either do it myself because I can do it faster and better.
Yeah.
Or I delegate it so much that I'm not really supervising it like I should. So I've got to find my sweet spot on that. Kia, I was thinking of you 100% of the time just now. with all the hats you wear. Literally, she has a hat sometimes she wears. I'm like, who is she today?
I do.
What do you think whenever you hear that sort of thing, and how do you think this might be something that would benefit you and people in your developmental and career stage?
I think this is great. Coming from the world I came from before coming here, I was a consultant. So it was a lot of things that, we had to work on in the environment. You said something great in regards to delegation. I think us as women feel as though we can't delegate because, like you stated, we become guilty and we're looking for that validation of, look, this is what I did and this is what I can do. And I just want to keep showing you that I can do it. One of the things I wanted to ask you is there was an acronym long time ago that I used to use called EAT, which was like expertise, authority, and trust. So how do you put that into, because delegation is a lot about, finding that expert and, making sure they're an authority figure, and do you actually trust them? How do you implement that into the whole training process and the business concept when you're, dealing with women? Because I know trying to get us to understand that it's okay. What type of implementation do you use for that?
One of the
How do
things
you
that
fix us?
well, one of the very first, because listen, I am guilty of the same thing. Like I am, because I'm a planner, organizer, whatever, I do all the things. I tend to, and I'm a recovering perfectionist. That's another reason why women tend to not delegate. And so I have a difficult time relinquishing that control. And what I did with my assistant is during our weekly meetings, I started going one by one through the various processes that I wanted to give her. And I said, okay, this is how you do X, Y, Z. And we recorded the meeting so that I literally walked her through step by step by step. And we created a standardized operating procedure so that if she goes on and to do something else, and I need to hire someone else, or I want to move that responsibility to another team member that I bring on at a later date, then it makes it easy because it's written down.
Yeah.
Right? We have a standardized process that anyone who picks up that paper or picks up that manual can go through, and it shows them step by step how to do something. Also being very clear on what the definition of done is, right? If you don't know, what does it mean for this to be done? Because when we relay something to someone, oftentimes we leave out key details and we leave things kind of fuzzy. And in their mind, they receive one thing and what we meant is something entirely different.
Oh yeah.
It is really and truly, unless they just don't do anything, it is typically our fault when someone fails to deliver the results that we want.
Yes. Yes, I had this discussion with my marketing team yesterday. They're like, well, what happened? I go, well, Jimmy and I failed. That's what happened. If we didn't get what we wanted from y'all, that's on us. So yeah, I think that's important to take the responsibility. And my gosh, the standard operating procedure thing, I imagine you work with people who want to scale their operations. And that's one thing we learned is you don't scale your operation when you fly by the seat of your pants. You actually do have to have some procedure, some redundancy. How do you work with people who want to grow their enterprise?
Well, that's actually one of the things that we do is take a look at what are the business systems, what are the processes in place that the owner is doing that they would like to get off of their plate so that they can focus on their core genius, right? What are the things that only they can do, and identifying things that can be delegated. And then we start to work on, okay, let's go ahead and standardize these, because here's the thing too about creating processes. Once you actually have it written out, then it's very easy to figure out where the breakdowns are, where things aren't clear, and you can continue to refine it and clarify things until you get to the place where it works like a well-oiled machine. So as long as you're following the process, you should get a consistent result, no matter who's doing it, unless there's some sort of breakdown. But it helps you to identify where there might be breakdowns in the future if you have it written out. But without that written process, then you're going to get inconsistent results because you're operating inconsistently.
That makes complete sense. That makes complete sense. Hey, Whitney, what are you thinking? What do you think about when you could think about how beneficial a coach could be at your stage whenever you are in graduate school, you know, working, trying to decide what kind of business you want to start and grow?
Well, one of the things I am having issue with right now is just what path should I take? There's so many, I mean, I have the, what is it? The benefit, but the burden of having too many options.
Yeah,
So
that's
so
just as big of a problem. You're exactly
the
right.
privilege and the burden of having too many options. So, you know, what's the best decision for me right now? Obviously, if it feels like something I need to do right away, I should do it. But most things can happen in the future. So if I wanted to go down this route, I can do it in the future. But having a business coach or having somebody to help guide you and weigh out the pros and cons for you is very helpful in my stage of life, for sure.
Yeah, it's about priorities, right? It's really about, and that's one of the things that we do as well, or that I work with my clients to do, is to really establish what their priorities are in their businesses and in their life. Like we look at the whole person, because you bring all of you to your work.
Yeah.
You don't just bring the business version of you, you bring your whole self to your work. And so let's sit down, figure out what are your top 3 priorities, and then align your goals with those priorities. And one of the things that we do too is okay, what is your annual goal, like overarching your big vision? Then let's focus on, what do you want to focus on the next 90 days? Let's break that down into a quarter at a time, and then reevaluate each quarter. Are those still your priorities? Are those still your goals? Because let's face it, life can change in an instant. And what was the priority today, tomorrow may be something completely different. I know for me, I was a non-traditional student, and I had intended to, when I graduated, to go take 2 weeks off and then start studying for the GMAT to go get my master's degree in business administration. Well, in that 2-week period of me being off from graduating, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. So my priorities shifted.
Yeah, I guess so.
You know, like,
Oh, wow.
right? Like school no
Wow.
longer, you know, grad school became way on the back burner, and my health became my priority focus. And I was okay with that, right? And a lot of times where we get caught up as women is we want to hold on to what we wanted and won't release it for what is in front of us. And so we have disappointment and broken expectations that hold us back from really fulfilling our true potential.
100%.
And so it's important to really reconcile
Let
that.
me thank some people who are watching. I am doing this from a Zaxby's chicken parking lot, just so you know. This is not a screensaver. So I want to give some shout out. I was going to thank these people a while ago, but then I picked up my phone and they went away. Okay, we've got Nicole watching. We've got Hannah Bland. We've got Patricia Yorton, Diana Flocka. So, and they are loving what you're saying. We had, I think, 3 empowered, enlightened men on before I dropped my phone. So I want to give a shout out to them. Somebody's having to actually listen to this in the seat next door. So we've got empowered men around us supporting everything we do. But I wanted to get to a couple of things, which was your education. How does one become, you know, a professional coach? What is your education training background? And then I want to talk about your faith and how that informs your practice.
Sure. From an educational standpoint, honestly, anyone can become a coach. Now, whether or not you're a good coach or not, that's a whole nother thing, but anyone can become a coach as long as you have had some experience, some expertise that you can then guide, because that's what a coach is. Someone who guides you through a process of something they have already done. So when you're looking for a coach, you want to check their receipts. You want to make sure that they actually have accomplished or done the very thing that you're asking them to help guide you.
That's pretty basic,
right? Because
but I wonder how many people actually think to do that.
Right.
That a lot of people don't. Just because you have the knowledge does not mean you've walked it out.
Right.
I can go read a book. I can go read a book on day trading and have all the knowledge, but if I've never done it, there's certain nuances that you want to experience unless you've done it. Right. So my personal background is in social work. So that's where I've got my degrees in social work. So that's where the coaching, that that working with people, the relationship, the assessment skills, all of that background comes from social work. There are coaching certification programs that you can invest in. And that's really about methodology.
Okay.
Right. So it's not necessarily informational or expertise. It's about the methodologies
Gotcha.
of working with people. So that's what my background is. Plus, I have 25 plus or around 25 years of operations management experience. So I bring that with the coaching, social work background, blended those together to step into my practice.
That's brilliant. I love that. I'm always excited when people take careers that you think are pretty well defined and limiting and put a different spin on them. I always tell people I'm just a social worker with a law degree, but you can do a lot of things if you're passionate in your hearts in the right ways. And you know more than you think you do, and you've met more people than you probably realize along your way. So I'm always big on keeping up with anybody you meet and networking and keeping those connections going. Kimmy, what are your thoughts or questions as we go on? Because Trasetta is a faith-based coach, and I wanted her to talk more about that. And faith can mean so many things to different people. Sometimes it's a faith in God, a deity. It's something. It could be a faith in the universe or yourself. What do you think of when you think of faith-based coaching?
Well, I had not heard of that before. I mean, I had thought that there probably are business coaches out there that are into faith, right? But I hadn't thought about it as a directive, but it makes sense to me. My family is all very religious. They're Christians, and that informs every aspect of their life. It's not just what they do on Sunday. It's they live and breathe it all the time. So it makes a lot of sense to me. I'm curious to hear from you, Trasetta, if there's specific points that you bring up in your coaching of folks that are specific to faith, or how does it weave into your coaching practice?
Good question.
It is at the core. It's the essential component of what I do. As far as, let me back up just a little bit and tell you how I ended up in coaching to begin with. And it's because I started a furniture refinishing business called Upcycled. It started as a hobby, and my husband was like, our living room looks like a flea market. What are you going to do with all this stuff? And so I was like, I'll just start a business and sell it. And so, but I didn't know what I was doing, right? Like I knew how to refinish the furniture. I knew how to repurpose things, but I didn't know how to market. I didn't know how to get good photos. I didn't know how to put on, build websites. Like I didn't know all of the different retail background things that you need to know in order to run a business. And so I started searching for resources. But a lot of the people who were out there, a lot of the experts that I ran across had strategies and tactics that did not feel good to me or didn't really align with my faith as a Christian.
Okay.
And I figured I could not be the only one who was struggling in that fashion. So it started as just kind of a support group. I knew a few other ladies who had businesses, and I was like, hey, I'm struggling here. Why don't we come together and support one another in business from the perspective of our faith? And so we started meeting once a month. And then about 9 months in, I felt called to actually start the process of coaching, with faith being at the core of that. And so when it comes to my practice, I'm primarily working with Christians. I do work with other women who aren't Christians, but one of the things that I start every one of my coaching sessions with prayer, because I'm very big on strategy and making sure that I'm not coming from the place of what is always or common practice or best practice in an industry or in a particular situation. I want to make sure that I'm seeking God for his strategy, his specific strategy for that person, because it may not necessarily be the typical strategy that is used. So I just really start that way. And then my teaching, a lot of the concepts and analogies that I use when I'm teaching, are pulled from biblical examples.
Okay.
So it's really, the core of what I teach and what I share with people is all based biblically, and that it aligns with integrity, the values of the Bible.
Have you ever watched a closing argument in trial? You ever watched a lawyer give a closing?
Not in real life, only TV version.
Yeah, if they don't have God, they find it. It's the most, you'll hear some parables in closings. It's a big thing they teach you to do in law school and trial practice. They tell you, because a lot of people get a lot out of, stories from the Bible, and you can always make something relate to, some sort of trial, tribulation a person's experiencing. But yeah, it's interesting how faith will inform people. I've seen people who aren't particularly active, but then something will trigger it. Some life experience they're having kind of renews their faith, or a lot of people switch their orientation and they're a little bit more into, vibrations from the universe and that sort of thing. But it sounds to me like you're saying, from your perspective, no matter who you're working with, your faith grounds and informs, how you're going to help them and go about doing the best to do that. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. You've got to have some kind of motivation other than money when it comes to your vocation, I think. If you're only going after money, it's not going to help a lot of people probably.
You'll only go so far.
Yeah, when that's your main motivator. Well, since we're talking about money, how do we afford you? How does somebody go? How do you charge for your services, and how do you go about making sure, people can, have the access to your services? Do you ever work with groups whenever people can't afford one-on-one? Just kind of orient us that way, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So I have offerings kind of at every price point. Mm-hmm. So the closer you get to me one-on-one, the more expensive it is.
Sure.
But I do have on-demand courses and classes. I have, free downloadables where you can get some sort of transformation, some sort of information to prepare you for or later work, right? So just because you may not necessarily be able to, quote unquote, afford or be able to invest in one-on-one coaching with someone, whether it's me or anyone else, doesn't mean you can't still be coached by them. Everyone puts, I'm always on social, doing Facebook Lives, sharing, special content. And so if you can go and heck, I could probably go back through my Facebook posts and write a whole book just from the things that I've posted on Facebook with different strategies and whatnot. So you still have access. So there's plenty of stuff that you can glean from the people that you look up to as experts on particular subject matter for free. And then my on-demand courses, those are at an affordable price. And then when you start getting into the group coaching programs and consulting, then it gets a little bit more, it gets a little more pricey. But one of the things that I do is I have, and I don't think that this, unless the Lord directs me to, right now, I still do all my consultation calls for free.
That's a big deal.
Right. So we sit down for 30 minutes. You tell me a little bit about what's going on. And then based on your situation, I will guide you in a particular direction as far as working with me. And it's not always to hire me one-on-one. Matter of fact, the majority of the time it's not. I might say, go join my Facebook group. I've been doing this long enough where I can kind of tell just based on when I ask people, tell me a little bit about yourself, by how they answer that question, kind of where they are mindset wise, because it really takes a specific mindset in order to work with a coach. Because if you don't view it as an investment and you're concerned about, how much it's costing you, then you're not going to pull the trigger, or you're not even going to do the work, or you're going to be so needy that you're going to drive me crazy.
Equally dangerous.
And that's not what I want to do.
Well, I'm so glad to meet you and know what your services are, because at our law firm at Facing Brooks, we deal with personal injury clients. And so many of them are able to change their lives, even though something really bad brought them into our lives. A lot of times they get the opportunity to change what their future looks like. And so many of them go from being employees to being owners. But it's more than just, needing an initial $5,000 to get whatever you need. It's more than having a passion or a talent for something. You've got to actually understand how a business works. But Kimmy, we've offered services to our clients, whether it's, you know, coaching or counseling or sitting down with someone and becoming better, more financially literate. Have you noticed the benefits of coaching helping people in your family, your clients? It helps us because we all engage in it at the firm. So what have been your experiences with it?
So I've never done personalized coaching like one-on-one, but we do all sorts of meetings and goal planning and all that jazz. And that has been very helpful. The idea of always coming back to the month, the quarter, the year, and refocusing on what the priorities are. I mean, it's been wonderful for my career. One thing that I wanted to ask Trasetta, earlier you were talking about how you help people determine what their priorities are. And my quick answer, of course, is my family, my work, right? The two biggest things in my life. But I wonder too how you kind of drill down to more of the nitty gritty, right? Because you need a little bit more of a specific answer, I would think, to drive at long-term goals. So could you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So I actually have an exercise that I take my clients through when we're identifying priorities. And what I do there, I have it broken down into the 9 areas of life. And I will not try to share all of them because I guarantee you I will forget in the list there. But, it's the basics: your career, your family, your faith, adventure, all those different, your health, all those different things. And I have them rate them from 1 to 10 of how they feel like they are, where they are right now as a priority in their life, each one of those different things. And then after they've rated each of them, I have them go back through all 9 and say, where would you like them to be?
Smart.
Good.
And then I have them go through and rank them based on, rate them, whatever, 1 through 10, where they would like them to be. And then what we do is take a look at the ones, I have them to identify the ones that have the greatest gap. So let's say they rated adventure a 3 and they want it to be a 9. And that's the biggest gap. And I say, okay, well, circle that one. So we go through and identify the ones that have that biggest gap and focus on those are the priority ones, because it's really low right now, but you want it to be much higher. And so that's where we begin to focus.
That's very logical. I want to thank some more people who are watching. We've got Isaac Ledbetter, we've got Troy Farrell, Robert Lucas, we've got all those enlightened, empowered men. We've got Cheryl, who's gotten a very challenging last name. Thanks for coming, Cheryl. Francis Gilliam. So lots of people watching, tuning in to hear what you have to say. We've been going a while. We haven't heard from Kia in a minute. What are your thoughts?
Everything
questions
she's been providing is absolutely amazing. I wanted to, though, kind of throw something out there. When you're working with different businesses, especially now, what has been some of the challenges that you've been encountering that they've been saying they've been challenged with, but maybe it's possibly not really a challenge? What are some of the things they've been throwing out?
Maybe some hangups people are having.
You know what? Funny, it hasn't changed. Like COVID hasn't changed what the issue is. It's really clarity. People have so many ideas and so many different directions that they want to go in that they get overwhelmed, right? It's like Whitney was talking about earlier, that's, having so many options makes it somewhat of a burden. And so what we try to do is, because strategy is part of it, right? So I sit down with them and try to really help. I help them to identify the connections between all the ideas they have, because a lot of times people have all these different ideas and they think that they're different. They're not connected at all. But generally there is some sort of central theme, some sort of central purpose that ties all of them together. So we'll go through each one of them and then we start looking at, okay, what is the low-hanging fruit? What's the one that's going to be the most easily implementable right now, given your current situation, given your current circumstance? And just by drilling it down that way, then that helps. Okay, we're going to focus on this one, get some momentum going on this one, and then we'll move to the next one. Then we'll go through that same process. All right, in 3 months, all right, now that you've got momentum going on this one, what's the next?
Right.
Or do we need to stay where we are? Do we need to stay in the vein that we are in order to get it to a place where it's a little bit more sustainable on its own before moving to the next thing? But really, it's clarity. That's the big, it's, you know, feeling overwhelmed, feeling divided, feeling very divided in their attention and focus to the point where you're ineffective. Because one of the things that I teach, productivity is broken into 3 different segments. A lot of people want to talk about time management but that's the foundational piece. The next piece is going to be your energy, right? Your energy management. You got to, if you have the time, but you don't have the energy, you're not going to do it. Right. And the next piece of that is focus, right? At the pinnacle of that is focus. So you've got the time and you got the energy, but if you don't have the focus, then you're not going to be able to do it. And what happens is we're all ladies here right now. I know that you have cleaned with a concentrated cleaner before. Yeah. Like every one of us has bought one of those concentrated cleaners. Well, in its purest form, in its most concentrated form, it is its most powerful, right? The more water you add, the more or the less strength the cleaner has. Our focus is the same way. Yeah. The more projects you throw into your focus, the more watered down it becomes, the less strength it has. So that's why I really get people to focus on priorities. Let's pick 2, no more than 3 priority focuses so that you have more concentrated effort before you start moving into something else.
Do you frequently find that when you do this exercise, most of what people's time, energy, and effort is spent on are not their actual priorities?
Yes.
Isn't that the incongruent nature of why people probably call you in the first place, right?
Yes, yeah. Absolutely. A lot of, and part of it is we wear busy as a badge of honor.
Oh God, yes. Yes.
Yeah, we wear it as a badge of honor. Oh, I am so busy. We want to say that. We want to be able to say, oh, look at me. I'm so busy. I'm doing all these things. But being busy and being productive is 2 totally different things.
Completely.
You can have a really long to-do list. You might have checked off 100 things on a to-do list, but what momentum have you created?
Yeah. I think that's very good because I think we take solace in busyness. I think that's a crutch, especially for women. You know, I am productive because I'm real busy, but are you really getting the outcome you want? And I tell our employees this all the time. If you can do everything I need you to do an hour a week, then you got, 30 something to do whatever you want with. I'm not looking to see you suffer. Right. I'm not looking for somebody who works the hardest or the most. I'm looking for somebody who gets me the outcome I want ethically, legally, morally, and with the kind of service that we tell people to expect from our law firm. Other than that, I don't give people a whole lot of direction because everybody works a little bit differently, but I can't emphasize that enough, how I'm not impressed as an owner employer by just busyness. And I don't think it really helps anybody really get where they want to be. It's a crutch that I think we use that makes us feel like, okay, we may not have done this, but we were busy. It doesn't make you challenge yourself.
And isn't that what people are paid for? Whether you are an employee or an employer, a business owner, whatever, we are being paid for the results that we provide. And a lot of people don't realize that. You spending all day in your email is not advancing the organization's goals. And too many employees, and unfortunately, too many managers are spending the bulk of their day just managing, just in email.
I used to do that. Whenever I used to have to actually respond to them, I would spend it. If I was out of the office, it would take me an entire day in the office to get caught up to email. So I would just be back at baseline. And I'm like, this can't be right. And I've learned this about email. It's gone the way of regular mail, is very few of those things are real bombs. A lot of it's just a lot of people getting things off their plate, passing it on to you or notifying you or something. So I don't respond urgently to email because anybody who needs me right away knows how to get me. They text me. And so I'm not really going to miss something. And a lot of times that stuff that's been sent in my email, if you leave it in there long enough, it's not relevant anymore. But if I had taken the time to respond to every single thing, especially in any sort of real time as it was occurring, I would have lost complete control over my schedule. And I would be deeply resentful because I wouldn't have the time to do the things I care about. And I do prioritize. Then that affects my attitude. And then that, fish rots from the head. If I'm not happy, you're going to feel that in other aspects of the firm. So you really have to get over this feeling that because somebody gave you a project or a task or a job that you must necessarily complete it, and especially on their timetable. That was a lesson. It took me many years to learn.
Yeah. The email is a to-do list that other people write
Yeah, it
on.
is. Yeah. So is my calendar. That's why I guard my calendar. I'm like, I know somebody did not put something on my calendar without going through me. That
was a mistake. I took it right off. Oh my God.
I know. I was like, who does this child think she is? You all wanted to talk about what you did at the medical school and how you transitioned into, this business or private practice or however you want to phrase it, because that is another thing I particularly see. Everybody, it seems to be kind of risk averse, but particularly women. And a lot of times they have these dreams of being owners or at least doing it on a side gig. And they're just like, let me just stay with the comfort of this steady paycheck and this employment model that I'm not really controlling a lot of. So tell us about your experience and how you help people make that transition.
For me, it was something that I knew I wanted to do from the very beginning. When I was first hired into my department, I told my supervisor that I can promise you 2 years because I was in school. I had left. I had previously worked for a Medicis Home Healthcare as the office manager there, but I was working ridiculous hours. I was that manager that did not have any boundaries, working 50 plus hours a week. And I was like, I really wanted to go back to school to finish my degree. And there was no way that I could do it working that many hours. So I resigned and, had some time in between before I actually found another position. And so I told her, I was like, I promise you 2 years. Beyond that, it's up to God. And I wanted for a very long time to actually leave to step out on my own, but I also knew that I needed to be it needed to be sustainable. I needed to be have consistent revenue, or at least have the reserves to be able to build up the systems to make sure that my revenue was consistent. And I felt like it was taking forever. I felt like it was taking longer than it needed to, or that I wanted it to. And it was definitely challenging because working 40 plus hours a week as assistant director, and then working my business on the side in the evenings and on the weekends, it's exhausting.
Yeah. You can't do that too long before you just burn right out.
No. And I knew that it was time for me to make the transition because it was taking more of my time than I had to run the business. I was having to take off from work to show up in my business. And so I was like, okay, the time is coming near. And then I was able to receive some of the CARES fund, and that put me in a position to have enough reserves where I felt comfortable to go ahead and make that leap.
Awesome.
But it was definitely a challenge to, it wasn't a decision that I made lightly. And I almost feel like I was kicked out of the nest a little bit too, because things got very stressful or very strained for me in the workplace before I made my transition. Had things been really easy, I may have stayed and hung around a little longer. But I think that it was God was intentional in not allowing me to be comfortable so that he can, kind of go ahead and push me into what I needed to be pushed into. And so when I'm working with my clients because the majority of them are side hustling, they're working 9 to 5 and are desiring to build their businesses to the place where they can be full-time, I really work with them on making sure that they're setting up those systems, getting their businesses to the place where they can have repeatable results.
Yeah.
right? Just because you had one 10K month doesn't necessarily mean you can repeat that.
Yeah.
It's evidence that you can repeat it, but it doesn't mean that you will. So if you don't know how you had that 10K month or that 50K month or whatever it is, or even if it's $1,000 month, if you're not making money, right? If you don't know how you did that, then you don't know how to repeat it. So
Right.
I will, help them to set up that foundational, those structures, those systems, so that they can have repeatable results.
Yeah. That's so important to measure, to have the metrics, to know how you have done. Yeah, that seems to be, honestly, I feel like that's all I ever look at. Is
Well, I
a
mean, it's
measure
a
of
part
how
of
I'm doing now,
a
how
part
I
of
was
running
doing year to
business.
date, last year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you have to. It's just good hygiene. You've mentioned the B word, and I want to get back to it because it's so important. Boundaries. And I would imagine when you counsel with women, you see a lack of those pretty universal in all aspects of their life. What do you do to help people who are nice people and who don't like people to think they're not nice, establish and maintain clear boundaries?
I have a couple tricks because saying no tends to be something that we are challenged with just outright saying. So when we are talking about people coming to you, asking you to do things, I always say, if you are averse to saying no to people, then I say, do not respond right away. Say to the person, let me check my calendar and I will get back to you.
Yeah, you train people how to treat you. And so if you're
Right.
immediately responsive to being a lapdog, you're going to have that job the rest of your life.
Right.
Yeah,
So
that's a good one. That's a good one.
That's
Is
the
just
first
to
line of defense.
not be that responsive. What else you got?
And then now you go back and then evaluate. Okay, how am I going to feel? Like, what? First of all, do I want to do this? Number one, do I want to do it? And if the answer is no, then you just then it's just no, right? You don't have to say, if you don't have to go to the person and say, no, I can't. But what I say is, I'm not available for that.
I love it.
Right.
I love
So
that
if
phrase.
you have a hard time, right. If you have a hard time saying no,
Good,
I'm not available for that.
Yeah.
And
I love
it's much more comfortable to say I'm not available. And I will listen, my calendar's back here. I will tell people, let me check my calendar and I'll get back to you. And I will go and I will grab my calendar and I will flip to said date and I'm looking at it. Hold on. I'm looking at it. Okay. And it looks like this, right? They don't know that. They don't know that, but
yeah, I can't say that.
And I go, I'm not available.
Now everyone
I'm
knows
sorry.
what you're doing, James. Everyone knows.
No, Kia and I talked about that yesterday. You got to find a way to let some people down is all there is to it.
Yeah. So, and here's another thing too. Just because you have an empty space on your calendar doesn't mean it needs to be filled up.
Yes, exactly. You can have downtime. You can have time. This is another thing a lot of people don't do. They don't allow themselves times just to think and to consider what they want to do, think, plan, get through all that prioritizing. And I do agree with you. If you put it on paper, a lot of patterns will emerge and become quite clear. But a lot of times you just need to think. That's what I hated whenever I worked in the legal world where you bill by the hour, because nobody ever wanted to pay you to think. And that was really what they got the greatest benefit of you from, because anybody could put out paper and fill, words on a court reporter's page. But the strategy and the planning is really what you pay a lawyer for, I think, a lot of the time. And that gets short shrift. And it's because we don't prioritize it and we give it that. But I block out time on my calendar. It's like, I'm just going to be thinking about that right now, or that's the time I'm planning. I call it planning. I'm thinking.
Yeah. But that's what it is. It's thinking time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also putting, strategic pauses is what I call them.
Yeah.
Schedule strategic pauses throughout your day so that you can have that kind of like mental break. But like I said, just because you have a blank spot on your calendar doesn't mean that you're available.
No, and I find myself doing that, even though I don't mind people not liking me, and I don't really mind I don't mind saying no. but I will think this is a worthy thing that I'm being asked to do. This has value. And so I'll decide to do it. Next thing you know, I'm helping somebody do something, or I'm on a committee, or I'm hosting an event that's really not furthering my mission and my main objective and goals. So whenever COVID started, I started getting very serious about it. I looked at everything on my calendar. I'm like, oh, that doesn't need to be there. That doesn't need to be there. So when I come out of COVID, I'm not doing it again. Come out of COVID, I'm doing it again. I'm seeing myself, I'm having lunches with people, I'm drinks, breakfast, coffee, you name it. And really it's just taking me away from the things that are my main goals, just because I really do like to help people and encourage them in their efforts and lend whatever I can to that. How do it's just another one of those boundary issues, I guess. And you got to watch your ego too. Sometimes you're just flattered that somebody asked for your help. And so of course you give to them.
Yeah, just be, time is your most valuable resource. So we have to also rethink what helping is. What does it really mean for us to help? Does it always require, it doesn't always require our time. Helping might be making a financial contribution. Helping might be connecting them with someone else who has expertise or the time to help with whatever it is. Helping can look very different. It doesn't always have to mean you are physically showing up to do something. Helping could even be just sharing, if it's someone's having an event, sharing the event on your social media platforms, right? So we have to redefine or be more open to what help might look like.
Yeah. What are you thinking when you hear that, Kia? Because I know you get pulled in all kinds of directions, personally, at home, professionally, and you want to help, you want to be, a team player, but there's such a difference between, not being helpful, being walled off, and then being such a team player that you're scattered all over the place and you're not really making any forward movement in the things that matter to you.
Yeah, I think that was a great way to put it, that we have to see help in different ways. Saying no is a new opportunity for that person to actually learn something from doing it themselves. So like you said, I think just seeing it from different perspectives, whether it's coming from a communication standpoint, a perception standpoint, I think you just coached us on that, because we all need to understand, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to allow someone to help themselves. But it's hard here because we are definitely all very empowered women. And the good thing is we all support one another. So that support, with you telling us about the help portion, I think we're seeing it in a different perspective now. At least I am, from hearing you say that. My eyebrows went up. I know you can't see them there.
But no, you think about that. You think about how you can help people, and it doesn't always mean you diving in with both feet and almost taking over the project for the person. And I have a tendency to do that, because I'll say, well, I can do this faster. I know more people. I could write a check or whatever. Let me do it.
Right.
And that's not helping anybody grow or learn. And it's not helping me feel any more in control of my time and my decision making. But I want to ask you real quick before we go too far, Trasetta, how do people get in contact with you? How do they find you?
I am at Trasetta Alexander on all social media platforms, except for Twitter. I'm Trasetta A, but I don't hang out there very much. I'm also
that's a scary place.
I'm also Profitable Productivity on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn as well. So those are really the places where I hang out. So Trasetta Alexander or Profitable Productivity are my handles everywhere. Or you can shoot me an email. I'd love to, believe it or not, I'd love to hear from you. Shoot me an email to Trasetta@TrasettaAlexander.com, and I will respond, because I use the inbox zero. So I actually love engaging emails.
Let me make sure I got your spelling right. It's Trasetta.
That's correct.
Alexander, correct? Okay. And I want to thank some other people watching. Let's see, Sherry, Miranda, Primus Thomas. I'm probably not getting that right, and I apologize. Jimmy Gordon and William Glass, two empowered men, I'm sure about it. Deborah Lloyd. So I appreciate their comments, and I appreciate them watching to you today. So I want to just go around before we close and hear from each of our panel members and see if they have any last questions or final thoughts today. Then I can start with Kimmy.
All right. I want to talk time management. When I first became an attorney, we used to do this thing called Power Hour, where we would close our door.
Those are
put a
good.
sign up. Yeah, do not disturb. And so we'd have at least 2 hours a day where nobody could contact us and we could focus on the bigger stuff, the stuff that took a lot of thinking and focus. And I've gotten away from that. I could do it now, but I wanted to see your thoughts on time management, setting aside really productive periods, kind of give me some insight.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I do. I do 90-minute sprints because research has shown that 90 minutes is our peak attention span. So that's kind of like the sweet spot. We can't go more than 90 minutes before we need a break. So whenever I do my time blocks, I do it in 90-minute increments. You can kind of see, that's how I do my schedule, is in 90-minute. And then I have at least a 30-minute to an hour break or split before I have something else scheduled. To one of the things that people, for time management, add some buffer time in between the things that you do, because stuff happens that you can't plan for. And if you've got things back to back to back to back on your schedule, then you're going to be frustrated when things happen to throw you off kilter. So throw some buffer times in there. But I am all about that power, like I said, you call it Power Hour. I have my 90-minute sprints, is what I call them. But in fact, I'm doing a challenge right now, a 90-day challenge to work 90 minutes a day on one project. So I've got a very specific project that I'm working on, and every day I'm spending 90 minutes working on it to get momentum going in that project. And I'm surprised. I'm only 3 weeks in. I started on the 1st, and we're just 3 weeks in, and I'm surprised I'm way further along than I thought I would be on that project.
I've found too, Kimmy, I have to book things in accordance with how I perform the best. And I don't like getting interrupted once I am on something. And so if I've got a day where I need, or if I know I need to meet with people, and that's usually an hour, I will schedule those all in one day. So it's like every hour I've got something, because I know I've got to switch my focus every hour. And I know it's just meeting and probably just checking in or helping somebody. And then I'll have another day. And if I need to work out, like I schedule workouts like it's a hearing, or I would never do it. And so if I know I need to have a bunch of time to concentrate, I'll try to work out at the beginning of the day or the end of the day, so it's not a disrupted during the day. But I've learned that that's how I am. And I learned I'm really in peak between 4 and 7 at night in terms of any kind of brain power that I need. So I try to schedule things like that. So a lot of it, again, like we talked about at the beginning, is where are your strengths? What do you do well? What is your sleep pattern? Whatever it is that makes you a unique individual, and try to play to your strengths instead of trying to conform to 8 to 5, because that's when things are open and that's how most people work. I think that's one good agility factor we got out of COVID, was not everybody works the same way. Find the things that you can all do the same, and then kind of let people do the thing that if they're at peak performance, let them figure out what that is. And it sounds, Kimmy, like you're saying, I got to come in strong for a couple hours at the beginning, because I know I'm going to get distracted at other points. Yeah.
That's that tier 2 productivity, energy management, right? So you got to know what your, I have my clients do time and energy audits to see when they are there, when they have the most willpower, the most brain power, the most focus and energy during the day, and when they have the least, so that they can schedule their most important work during the times when they have their peak productivity hours. And then the things like email and things that don't really require a whole lot of energy and focus during the times when they have those lulls. For me, I'm mid-morning is my peak time. And then afternoon around between 2 and 4 o'clock is when I have my energy lulls. And then I have another spurt before the close of the day.
Yeah, just find your thing. Yeah, I got it. I like it. Whitney, I saw your eyes light up when you saw her color-coded calendar.
Wow.
She's got colored markers.
It's funny because that it just takes time to do that, to actually put stuff on your calendar. Like I'm thinking about all the calls I need to make tomorrow, and I'm like, I need to write that on my calendar, but that's like a whole nother thing. I'd rather just try to keep it in my mind, and hopefully it stays there.
That gets harder to do the older you get, let me promise you.
It's a little,
you actually have to start writing stuff down.
I do have a little monitor that's like, oh, that's too much, you're gonna forget that. That's important, make sure you write it down. So I do have a little bit of a gauge in my head about that. I did want to mention a couple of things that you said that kind stuck with me is that, you know, when we talk about other people putting stuff on our calendars or making us accountable for things, it's easy to pay attention to something when someone's like, hey, look over here, talk to me. But you don't get to do that for yourself that often. Like, you have to be, your inner voice has to be strong enough that you pay attention to yourself. And I think I've been doing a lot better at that, because I do some coach, or I have a coach too, and learning how these times where I work out, make sure I work out pretty consistently, make sure I get enough sleep, those things help me do better in my other life. So if I have to not be here during the day because I need to go work out for an hour and I'm not missing anything important, that's just how it's going to have to be, because otherwise I can't do my best in my other areas of life. And I am most days 8 to 10 working and going to school.
Yeah.
So
Well, you
I
got 2
have to take
jobs
that
in.
break in the middle of the day to make sure my energy and my, you know, myself is. So my inner voice needs to be stronger, or as strong as everyone else pulling me in. So I think that's a very cool thing that we've talked about today.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Mhm.
Your inner voice needs to be stronger than the other ones coming at you, for sure. You need to have a focus, compass, I guess is what I'm thinking of. Kia, what are your final thoughts today before we close?
Well, I know you said that you liked coffee, but you also have a podcast called Tea with Trasetta.
Is that where she gets the tea?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just wanted you to go into some details for that, because all of us on here love podcasts. Like, we're always on something. We're readers. We're all that great stuff. So give us a little input on that so that we can have a good takeaway so we can start adding you to our podcast list.
Yeah.
So T with Trasetta, T is actually an acronym for training, encouragement, and the answers you need to be successful in life and purpose. And it's actually been on hiatus since COVID. But I am bringing it back here within the next month or so. I've been recording some episodes, but I'm bringing it back. I will be rebranding it under Profitable Productivity, under my Profitable Productivity brand. It will probably be called Mind Your Minutes.
I like it.
Change the name. Yeah, I'm going to change the name and come back and really we'll be talking all things productivity. But you know, so it's not just productivity, but mindset and planning, you know, all the things that go along with you being self-care, you know, all the things that go along with you showing up as your best self.
I love it.
But
I'm going to take your podcast
with
with the tea. I'm going to take you with the tea, and we're going to turn it into just gossip about everybody who's been on the EmPower Hour. Now, listen, I want to thank you so much for making the time and being patient with me with this whole setup. So I really appreciate that. Thank you, Whitney, for pulling this off every week. And Greg, like you always do. Thank you, Kimmy, for being on. And Kia, as always, your contributions are so meaningful and they add so much to our discussion. So thank you all. And we look forward to seeing all kinds of wonderful things coming from Trasetta Alexander, faith-based business coach. So thank you again. And we will see everybody next week on the EmPower Hour, Thursday, Facebook Live at 4:30.
Bye, guys.
Goodbye for having me.
Thank you,
Trasetta.